Your costume is pretty.
Oh, it's not a costume. I'm an elf. Well, technically I'm a human, but I was raised by elves.
Oh, I'm a human, raised by humans.
Hey there! Congratulations on winning the 11-second club. Awesome job, amazing animation. My name is Shad Bradbury. So I've worked in the industry for about 20 years now. Currently, I'm directing a short, but in the past, I have worked at Pixar, Sony, Tippett, and Rhythm and Cues. I worked on some films like Coco was the last film I worked on, and then Inside Out was a fun one. Good Dinosaur, Hotel Transylvania, Cloudy, and some other really, really bad ones that I'm not going to name. Anyway, enough about me. Let's talk about your animation. The name I have down for you is S. I hope that's what you would prefer to be called. If not, I apologize. You've done a beautiful animation here, S. Let's take a look, and then we'll go over it a little bit. But I can tell you, like right away, I don't think there's overall a lot of notes. There's some ideas on how to plus it, but I think you have something really fantastic here.
Your costume is pretty.
Oh, it's not a costume. I'm an elf. Well, technically I'm a human, but I was raised by elves.
Oh, I'm a human, raised by humans. Your costume is pretty.
Super cute, super great. So overall, I really like it. Like I was saying, and my favorite part of your animation, excuse me, is I think it's the girl animation right here.
Oh, I'm a human.
Actually, it's at the beginning.
Your costume is pretty.
This right there. I love this eye work that you've done right here in terms of the head goes down, she blinks, and then she looks up and the lids go up right after. There's something super authentic and real about that, and I don't think anyone doubts for a second that she, there's always that weird moment when you compliment someone where you're like a little bit vulnerable because you're kind of like telling the world like what you like, and I feel like you can feel that. Like
Your costume is pretty.
she's not just complimenting, she's also telling him that she, that's her aesthetic and that's what she likes. And so you can feel a little bit of vulnerability right there. And so I think that's really well
Your
done.
costume is pretty.
Saying that overall, I think your eye work is really spectacular on this. I really believe
Oh, it's not a costume.
your
I'm an
character.
elf. Well,
I believe that they're thinking, and that's one of the biggest obstacles and struggles for younger animators. I don't know if you're a younger animator or not, but that's often what they struggle with is trying to make the character feel alive.
I'm a human,
And
but
I
I was
feel like
raised by
you must
elves.
have a lot of
Oh,
experience
I'm a human, raised by humans.
because at the very end too, I think right here is one of my favorite parts as well. This very last little eye dart. You have a bigger eye dart down than a smaller eye dart, and you keep your lids where they're at, and then you go down. You have your lids go and fetch the eyes, and then you pull them back up at the end here. The timing of your lid movement there is also very feels true and authentic. So really nice work on that. As far as like things that I can see that feel better, the very first time I watched it, I felt like there was a little bit too much movement on the guy. Now this may be like an individual kind of like preference on my part, but I kind of felt myself through sections. I would say if we talk about frames 100, so if we talk about frames 110, that's a terrible color, like 110 to I would say around 190. So if we talk about these frames,
Well, technically I'm a human, but I was raised by elves.
my initial thought was it just felt like there was a lot of movement, and if it were my shot, I would probably try to hit and stick a little bit more than you currently are. It feels like sometimes you're moving through a pose when you can kind of like hold in that pose a little bit. Now, again, that might just be a preference, but I could give you an example of what I might do. Actually, instead of 192, it probably goes to 199. One of the first things that I might suggest doing is removing this little move that you have at the end of the shot, this little rightward move. So I think your chest goes from here, and then you looks like you rotate it and probably translate it as well. I would probably see what it looks like to remove that. That's the very first thing I think, and the easiest thing that you could do to kind of help stick that pose instead of constantly moving.
Well, technically I'm a human, but I was raised by elves.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like it's necessary, and it kind of feels like it's odd. If you, for some reason, wanted to keep this move, what I would suggest doing then is also having that move continue through the cut. So like continue having that rightward movement, screen right movement, continue in this, because it's a little weird because at the end of this cut, your character is moving screen right, but then at the beginning of this cut, your character is moving screen left. And I know it's subtle, but that's definitely something I would look at. But I think the easiest thing is just to remove that movement, and that'll help a little bit.
Well, technically I'm a human, but I was raised by elves.
There's also to help, to kind of elaborate more on the hit and stick of this section. Let's see what we can think about, because I don't think there's like necessarily one answer for this.
Well,
I like this move. This feels like authentic.
Well,
no look
technically
away.
I'm a human. Well, technically I'm a human, but I was raised by.
So
Technically I'm a human, but I was raised by elves.
Oh,
I would probably look at the raised by elves, this right here, and I would ask you to kind of question this gesture and kind of what you're going for. And the way I would approach this, and this is something in your following shots, if you're not doing, which you probably are, is definitely think about subtext, because that's a big thing. Like that's actually what they're actually saying. So I can say this is the best animation ever. But if my acting is like, this is the best acting ever, right? Like, and my subtext is actually, this is terrible animation, but like I'm saying, this is the best animation ever, and I'm sure you're aware of this. And so I wonder what you feel like. The subtext to my words, just so you know, is this is actually great animation. Looking at this, I wonder what you feel like the subtext is. I'm guessing he has a positive opinion about elves, and maybe do the elves have this like mantra where they're like, "Let's do it," or something like that. So I would lean into this and question like, why am I doing this gesture? Why is that character doing it? Is that something that they constantly do? And if you feel like this gesture is true to this moment, maybe what you can do is you can hit and stick this like this, and then you can kind of hold in this pose instead of it going like this and then circling back around like you do right now. You have a big circular movement where the hand goes something like this, and I wonder if you can kind of instead just like hold it here like this, as it's like, yeah, triumphant, because that would help the hit and stick, and you would still get across the same kind of idea. So those are my thoughts on that. That was my very first thought, was that it just felt like there was a lot of movement here that we could probably simplify. The second thought that I had overall watching this was your lip sync. I felt like, and I don't know if this is because it was turned in, or if it feels like many of the sections, the lip sync is correct, but it feels like it's off by like 4 or 5 frames either before or after. And so what's interesting is like I can tell that phenomes and that you're hitting most of your phenomes, but it feels like in some parts it's pretty far off.
his costume is pretty.
Like
His costume is pretty.
like if we talk about pretty here,
Pretty. It's pretty. It's pretty.
see, like if I just play this,
It's pretty. It's pretty.
it feels like
Costume is
I'm hearing pretty, but I'm not even seeing the P. So it feels like the images are a little bit too soon. So it feels like you might need to push back your images a few frames. Probably I would say like 3 frames. So I'm hearing pretty on.
It's pretty.
And P is plosive, and it's something that you might also consider. I don't know if you can do this, but it might be something that you consider trying to get a little bit of a pop in the cheeks, because you're gonna. It's a plosive, and I know she's not doing that in the dialogue. But anytime you have a P, I feel like animators usually get excited because they're like, "Ooh, I can puff out the cheeks a little bit." So let's see. So you're doing it on.
Costume is pretty.
Yeah, I get your images. It looks like they were actually way.
His costume is pretty.
Yeah, it looks like they're too soon, your images. So your images need to be pushed back. So ignore what I just said. Looks like they need to be pushed back 4 frames.
His costume is pretty.
Costume is. Feels like.
It's pretty.
Feels like that's when we need to start seeing like your P.
Costume is pretty.
Oh, it's not a costume.
And then here too.
Oh, it's not a costume. Oh, it's not.
See, it feels like he's talking way before. Like it feels like his mouth is starting to move way before we hear sound.
Oh, it's not a costume.
Oh, it's not a. So you can. I love how you're holding in this, and I feel like you can probably hold in this longer, because it's like, Oh, it's not a costume. The one thing to keep in mind with dialogue that may help you in the future is the beginning and ends are the most important part. The middle, you can jumble all you want, really, and people will kind of ignore that. But you really got to hit the beginnings and the ends of your sentences. And if you get those right and you get those solid, usually people will buy whatever you put in the middle.
Oh, it's not a costume. Oh, it's not a costume.
Okay.
Oh, it's not a costume. I'm an elf.
Let's see.
Oh, it's not a. Oh, it's not a costume. I'm an elf.
Let me.
I'm an elf.
Yeah, here we
I'm an
go.
elf. I'm an elf. I'm an elf.
See, we're
an
hearing
elf.
him say, I'm an elf,
I'm an elf.
all right here, but
I'm an
all
elf.
he's going is,
Well,
he's saying,
technically I'm a human, but I was raised by elves.
an elf.
I'm an elf.
So, and it looks like all of that is here. So it looks like we need to push all that later. And again, if this is just because of the encoding of the software or something like that, make sure that this is actually how it looks like in your Maya file.
I'm an elf. Well, it's not a costume.
I'm an elf. Let's take a look at your F shape. Elf. I would try to, with any time of F and V's, I always try to show some of the top teeth. I'm an elf, right? Because if you don't see any of those top teeth, then what it becomes is like an MVP. I'm an M, right? And you close your mouth instead of getting that V shape. So I would try to hang out more in this. I think this one works a little bit better. Probably hold longer here because this starts to feel like an FV. But then this we start to feel like an M.
I'm an elf. Well.
And then see again. This feels really off with the dialogue. So I won't go into that, but definitely take a pass on making sure the dialogue starts and ends in kind of the right place.
Well, technically I'm a human, but I was raised.
Yeah, and same here.
Technically I'm a human, but I was raised by elves.
Oh, I'm a human.
Cool. I want to go over some just overall ideas now. So just so you know, those were the two main things that I took away when I first saw it. So those are the things like, if you're looking to make this shot better for like a demo reel or something, that's what I would focus on if it were me. Also, one very small minor thing is I don't know if you animated the hair or if it's some sort of auto thing on him, but I feel like that also it feels pretty off, your overlap.
Technically, I'm a
it
human,
often just kind of feels like the hair is just kind of moving. So I think that also lends to the fact of things just kind of feeling like they're floating and moving. So if it is an auto thing, I would probably turn it off because you don't have any hair motion on her. If you are animating it and you want it, then I would take another pass at tying those overlaps a little bit closer to its movement.
Costume is pretty.
Okay, let's get into some overall ideas and thoughts, just that you can kind of think about as you move forward with other shots. I really like her acting of this. I feel like that feels authentic. Your costume is pretty. I feel like that. I think your intent is that she was like grabbing part of her costume. Like your costume is pretty, right? That feels great to me. It feels like you're doing a pretty good job. But whenever you have characters sitting down, make sure that like what often happens is when characters are sitting down, like if this is their hips. Oftentimes our pivot point is right here, and what a lot of animators will do is they'll just rotate that. And so what you end up doing is you have a character that will rotate from like here to here, which is something you don't want, right? So what generally you want, and I'm not saying you're doing this, is like I said, this is thoughts for like future shots. Make sure that you think about your pivoting. Sorry, my dog is doing something. Make sure you think about pivoting like right here if they want to lean over in this direction. So what it would actually do is like you would pivot on that side of your hip, right? And it would feel something like that instead of this. So it would be more like that. It feels like what you have though here, it feels like it works. It feels like it's maybe just squashing right here, which is really nice. I'm only bringing it up because that's a common thing that I often see in work. So
it's not a
cool. And then let's talk about his acting right here. So she just compliments him, and
it's not a costume.
And I would question kind of your acting here on this guy. So he's like, she compliments him, and he goes, it's not a costume. But I would encourage you, S, to go and compliment someone's clothes. Just 3 random people you know or whatnot, and then pay attention to what they do. And I guarantee you that almost all of them, like the first thing they'll do is this. They'll be like, oh, really? They'll look down. I can almost guarantee you, like anytime you compliment someone, what they're going to do is because they're not sure what you're saying, and then they're looking at it and they're like, really? And so that's what I would encourage you to do with this. I think you could probably have him look down, and you could make it as big or small as you want. That would be up to you. But I think what that would also help is it would also help anticipate this upward move. So right now you have your lids opening up right here. So from 42 to 48, you have your lids opening up. But if you have a downward movement before that, that will help antique it, because then you'll go down and then you'll be able to brighten up, and that'll help push that as well. You might also consider, and it may work and it may not work, but you might consider trying to get white above and below the eyes. Sorry, my brush size is huge. You might try playing with that just for a bit, because that'll help pop. Anytime there's a possibility to have white above and below the eyes, I always at least try it, because it can be very powerful when you have that. So definitely give that a try.
Oh, it's not a costume. I'm an elf.
Um,
Oh, it's not a costume. I'm an elf. Well, technically I'm a... Oh, it's not a costume. I'm an elf. Well,
I think that's great. Be careful of your hands here. So when your hands go up, it feels like their spacing is tied, and it feels like they're not offset at all. Now, it's okay to have things that aren't completely offset. Like when students often think that, like, teachers say, oh, you have to offset that. What they think is that they always feel like that means you have to have this and this. And most of the time you will have something like this, right? You'll have one hand go down and then the other hand go down. But you can have things start at the same frame, but you can still offset them by changing their spacing so that they both start, but one will go faster than the other. And that'll help break that up. So if we look at your hands here, I think we'll probably find that doing this move, they're probably keyed on the same frame. So it looks like they're both keyed on maybe 129, and they both start moving up here. It looks like you have a little bit different spacing, which is nice. Like, it's nice to see, like, your spacing here, you can see is much different than your spacing here. Yeah. See, so that's what I was talking about in terms of, like, your offset spacing. But then when we get up here, it feels like, they're really tied together, your spacing. And then particularly when they go down, it feels like they have the exact same key and the exact same spacing. So if we were to track kind of these points right here, I think we would kind of see that, the spacing is going to be pretty even, and they start on the same frame. Yeah. So I would definitely break that up a little bit, and they probably hit down at the same frame too. Yeah, so it feels like you're starting to ease them at the same frame and kind of stop them at the same frame. So that's a pretty easy thing to do.
I'm human, but I was raised by elves.
We already kind of discussed this gesture right here.
But I was raised by elves.
Oh, I'm a human.
I personally, I'm not a fan of, like, this mouth shape, particularly the teeth. The overall mouth shape I like, but I guess I'm looking at the teeth right here. What I would personally do is probably hide my bottom teeth a little bit there. It's a little bit weird. Like, if we look at your shape, what we're getting right now. Let's see if I can actually get a white shape. I don't know if I can. There we go. It like what we're seeing kind of this right now with your teeth, which feels a little bit odd to me. I wonder if we were just to hide. I feel like overall that would probably be better. I'm a big fan personally of generally, unless it's character specific, hiding the bottom teeth. Like, and when you do see them, you basically just see, a sliver like this. But generally, like, seeing the inside of the bottom teeth, like the back of the teeth particularly, is usually pretty unappealing. So that's something that I probably would do.
Oh, I'm a human.
Jumping to her.
Oh, I'm a human. Respect.
I would. I'm curious about this as well. This is another thing.
I'm a human. Respect human.
I think there's something really fun about this dialogue, and I'd like you to explore a little bit something about, like, what she's saying. She's like, "Oh, I'm a human, raised by humans." It feels like there would be some sort of, like, thinking right after she says, "I'm a human." Oh, raised by humans, right? Because this isn't a line that she's probably ever said before in her life, because that's not something that we would normally say, right? So I feel like if there was any possibility for you to get her to suggest that she's thinking really quickly, like, oh, I'm a human raised by humans, right? It feels like there would be like an eye dart down, left, right. So
I'm a human. Raised by
I probably would have approached this a little bit differently. I probably would have maybe removed this blink because that's going to hurt. That you're probably going to need those frames to sell an eye dart.
Oh, I'm a human.
Oh, I'm a human. Like, wait. Oh, like, oh, I'm a human raised by humans. Yeah, and so it'd probably be something like that. The way I would approach it. I think there's probably something a little bit funner we could have there
Oh, I'm a human. Raised by humans.
to kind of show that she's like raised by humans. That's like a weird thing to say. And that would give her a little bit of judgment on kind of like what he's saying.
Your costume is a human. Raised by humans.
Oh,
Your
I'm a
costume
human.
is pretty.
Although she is a kid,
Raised
and
by
kids are
humans.
very, they're not nearly as judgmental. They kind of just go with the flow.
Raised by
So
humans.
that's something that you could consider.
Raised by humans.
And
Raised
I
by
really love
humans.
the eye
Raised
work
by
that you've
humans.
done at the end, of
Because-
course. Curious if this is teeth, I would hide those teeth right there again. I'm guessing that's the bottom back teeth.
Your costume
Cool.
is pretty.
And then she has a little move right here. You might consider removing it and seeing if it works. It's not necessarily bad, but she has this movement from 256 to 265. This kind of like rightward movement that you have there. Be careful of that. I feel like you did that also with the guy. You tend to like end your thing with like kind of like a left or a right. At least you did and with both of these shots. So if we look at this guy right here,
Technically, I'm a human, but I was raised by elves.
yeah, raised by, and then he moves that way, and then you're doing kind of the same thing here with her,
Humans.
where you have that very slight move from here to here, and it's almost working, or I can almost buy it because you have your smile happening first, and so you could say that that's driving your chest to kind of go like rotate backwards, like, right? That's driving that movement backwards. So it might work with her. I would probably see if I could. I would first remove it, see if it works better, and then if you feel like there might be something to it, you might just minimize it, or you might, instead of it being so linear right now, it feels like your arc on your nose might be a little bit linear, and you might just be able to round it out a little bit. Cool. I think that's pretty much it.
Your costume is pretty.
Oh, it's not a costume. I'm an elf. Well, technically, I'm a human, but I was raised by elves.
Oh, I'm a human. Raised by humans.
It's a really fun and beautiful shot, S. I would be very proud to have it as my shot. Keep on animating. I would love to see more work from you. I hope that was helpful, and have a happy new year. Okay, I'll see ya.